Welcome back to Drew's News. This year marks the 20th anniversary of the September 11th attacks. And as we look back and honor those who lost their lives on that day, there is one man from Boston who is on a very personal journey in their honor. His name is Paulie Veneto, and he's a former United Airlines flight attendant who was off that morning, but lost members of his flight crew. And this year, Paulie is walking from Boston Logan Airport, where two of the planes that were hijacked departed from, to ground zero, pushing a beverage cart in honor of his fellow heroes. He is 50 miles into his 220-mile trek, so we are very happy to speak with him today where he is. Please welcome, coming to us from Eastern Connecticut, Paulie Veneto.
Hi, Paulie. Wow.
Hi, Paulie.
How are you? Good to see you.
Honored to meet you. You are doing such a beautiful undertaking, and I would love for you to tell us about why you are doing this.
Well, because it's long overdue that we let this country know and the world know the heroics of those crew members on that morning. They were never recognized as the first responders of 9/11. They went hand-to-hand combat that morning, and it's understandable why it was overshadowed because of the enormity of that day. But it's long overdue that this country recognize true American heroes. Those flight attendants up there, they accomplished something that is mind-boggling to me. I get emotional when I talk about it because every time I get to this part, I start to feel like I'm walking in their steps of what they were thinking, what they were doing under those conditions. It was horrific. But we all know from the phone calls that they made to the ground that they were able to let us know where those terrorists are seated. In the midst of that gruesome scene at 8 o'clock in the morning, they had people, screaming for help or whatever was, the chaos. They were still calm voices. And there were people just like every one of us, and not trained to go hand-to-hand combat against terrorism, but they did it all the way to the end. So as a country of Americans, we should, recognize them to give their families a little peace. And I think of their kids, their nieces, their nephews, their cousins, their brothers, their sisters, have never heard the word. I never heard anybody say, my relative was a flight attendant on 9/11, and they were a hero.
Paulie, I want to thank you for being such an extraordinary storyteller, because the way you just described everything humanizes it for us in a way that others are not so eloquent and able to bring us into the moment of what those people went through. Mm-hmm. It's the 20th anniversary of 9/11, and we tend to look at the macro, but what you are doing is bringing us into the micro in ways that I find so compelling, so honoring, and so extraordinary. And I thank you for what you are doing. And I know it's also the 6th anniversary for something very big in your personal life. And I was wondering if you could share that with us as well.
Absolutely. After 9/11, I fell into an opiate addiction that lasted almost 15 years. I flew for 10 years, numbing myself out on pain medication. And I knew nothing about pain medication, but it almost took my life. I was told a long time ago, don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle. And I know that 5 days after 9/11, I knew that these guys weren't going to be recognized. And I put a picture of these crew members of 175 on my flight bag, and I brought that with me everywhere. As years went by and as my addiction became, you get deeper into it. And I was fueled every year by the anniversary would come up, and I couldn't understand why nobody was recognizing these people. And so in 2011 is when I pretty much crashed and burned. And I knew that through that time, that dark place I was in, all I thought about is I need to recognize these crew members. But I knew that I couldn't do that. I didn't know if I was going to survive what I was in to do it. I had to survive to recognize them. So I just hung on. I just hung on. And I didn't quit 5 minutes before the miracle. And the miracle was I finally was able to put the stuff down and the obsession was lifted. It was a miracle.
Paulie, I just see you sitting there in a miracle shirt, and I'm thinking about your journey and how miraculous it has been. And I'm not talking about the journey we're seeing now as you walk across the country. I'm talking about your personal one. But when I look at you walking across the country, pushing that cart, I think about how are you doing it? Are you going from point A to point B? Are you making stops along the way?
Well, I'm doing it a step at a time, a day at a time, a minute at a time. I go as long as my body will let me go. I've trained for this. I get mentally trained for it. I physically trained for it. So I stay in a hotel every night. But whatever the weather is, I'm prepared for it. I do, there's a lot, my training has changed a little bit since I started because I didn't have people coming out of their houses and stopping and pulling up, and fire departments, and police departments, and everybody stopping me. And I'm so grateful for that. It's turned into something I never expected.
The awareness that you're raising for this, and also you're raising money too for a nonprofit called Tuesday's Children in New York. Can you tell us about that?
Well, all that part of it, the raising money part of it, is I'm doing that to my best friend's sister, Kelly Wilson, and she's in charge of the foundation, which is hers, which is powerforward25.com, which helps people in recovery find sober living and grants, and Tuesday's Children, which helps people from the 9/11 foundations. And so they take care of all that stuff. All I care about is the rest of this country saying, something, let's let the world, everybody know, let these family members know that we recognize what their family member did that day as first responders. We recognize that. They were heroes. I want every one of those family members, relatives to hear this from all of us. I'm just the guy pushing the cart. That's all it is. I want the rest of the country and the rest of the world to spread this message so that it'll reach these family members or these crew members, so their kids and their nieces and their nephews can finally say, listen, my aunt was a flight attendant on United or American, and they were a hero. I want them to hear that.
I think they will, thanks to you, Paulie. And you have taken a very personal journey that you actually turned outward. And that's why kids are coming out with signs and why we're talking here on the show. And we're so honored that you've made a pit stop with us. We are one of many who are cheering you on, and we'd like to donate $5,000 to your journey and to keep in recognition. Our hearts are with all the brave people that we lost in the attacks. And thank you so much for describing and bringing to light their stories, their humanity. And go to our website now to find out how you can support Paulie's push right now. Paulie, thank you.
Thank you, Paulie. And go, Paulie, go.
We'll be right back. Thank you, Paulie. Thank you so much.